All right, welcome back. Well, today we're going to be reading about the Albany Plan of Union. Now, the Albany Plan of Union was a unified government plan, and it was presented July 10, 1754. And it was presented at the Albany Congress. So the Albany Congress was the meeting. The Albany Plan is what they came up with. And this is what we decide we want to do. So, the Albany Plan of Union was a plan to create a unified government for the 13 colonies. And it was suggested by Ben Franklin, who was then a senior leader. He was age 48 at the time. He's the same guy who did the whole lightning bit with the key hanging from the kite. And he was a delegate from Pennsylvania, because he was from Pennsylvania. And he was at the Albany Congress, July 10th, 1754, in Albany, New York. I wonder, Albany Congress, Albany Plan of Union, I wonder where this stuff happened. Albany, New York. All right. More than 20 representatives of several northern Atlantic colonies, so the New England colonies mostly, had gathered to plan their defense related to the French and Indian War, which was the portion of the North American 7 Years' War between Great Britain and France. Remember, Great Britain and France were basically engaged in one of the first world wars, the 7 Years' War. And that basically started here in the colonies with the 7 Years' War. Started basically here in the colonies with the French and Indian War, and it exploded all over the world. And it had been egged on, it had been spurred on by George Washington's recent defeat in the Ohio Valley. George Washington went to Fort Duquesne and set up his own fort, and he was defeated, but he was so highly respected for having dared to go out there and try. So he became very famous, very popular. And the reason why you need to remember the Albany Plan of Union is the plan was one of the first early attempts to form a union of the colonies, quote, under one government as far as might be necessary for defense and other general important purposes. The plan called for a general government to be administered by a president general, to be appointed and supported by the crown. So this government would work for the King of England, and a grand council to consist of delegates nominated by the lower houses of the colonial assemblies. So a council made up by popular vote. Under the plan, delegates from the colonies would be chosen roughly proportionate to colony size, from a minimum of 2 to a maximum of 7 for Virginia. So a minimum of every colony is going to get at least 2 people to have a voice for them in this meeting. But Virginia, since it has the most people at that time, they would get 7 delegates. But each colony would have only 1 vote, and decision-making was by unanimous consent. So Virginia may get 7 people present in the meeting, 7 different brains with which to argue with, but at the end of the day, every single colony has an equal vote. Proposed powers included treaty making, raising an army and naval forces, and most significantly, the right of taxation. One of the biggest complaints of the colonists against the king is that Parliament, the lawmaking body in England, is taxing the people in the colonies. But the colonies don't have any representation in England. They don't have a vote. Why do you get to tell us how much money to pay you if we don't even get to have a vote? The right of taxation is a big deal. After the large group of delegates discussed their issues and objections, they resolved most of them and adopted the plan. They sent copies of letters to each of the colonial assemblies and to the British Board of Trade in London, which had originally suggested the Congress. The colonial assemblies and British representatives, however, rejected the Albany Plan. The colonies weren't ready for it yet. They were too independent-minded, and Britain saw it too much as a threat to their superiority. Benjamin Franklin came up with the join or die flag. He made newspapers, so he was really good at advertising, as you will. And if you look at it, it says join or die. We need to bond together or we will die. And each portion of the snake would be like South Carolina. I'm reading from tail towards the head. The South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and then all of New England, because New England is just, there's so many up there, so many small ones. So they just, for the head, they said New England, all those colonies up there. You know, Ben Franklin really liked the snake. In fact, he wanted it to be our national animal, not the bald eagle. The bald eagle had not been suggested yet, so he suggested a snake. You know, a snake is, you don't mess with it. It's calm, it's chill, it doesn't like to mess with people, but you mess with it and it'll mess you up. But a snake is only strong if it is whole. It needs all of its parts to be strong, hence the flag. So I hope this was helpful and I hope you're enjoying.